everybody. Welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. I'm Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Mad Mouth, hyper as heck. Be honest with that great group tonight. We got Stephen Reichel in the house. We have Candy Ebling in the house. Right? Hello, Stephen. There you go. Go out there and give me that old Philadelphia look. Okay. There you go. And I don't know what kind of cap he's wearing. We got Melfar not wearing a cap, but that's okay. There are a lot
How
of
about
great
them
beers on this.
Bruins?
Yeah, don't worry. That's a big
How
thing we're
about
going to
those
talk about.
Bruins? Here we
We'll have a
go.
big Southern California show tonight. And of course, we have Marvin Powell in the house. And
Spot
Marvin,
on.
did you play for Green Bay? I think also you played for New Orleans, right? I
Yeah,
think
I was traded to Green Bay in 2000.
How you like that, Ken? You got a Packer in here. Look at that. She wants to hear
Love
that.
it. Love
I,
it.
I ended up getting that thing through Instagram. Hey, Daniel Perry, Sports Island, glad to have you in the house. And we got Tommy Shanahan, who's going to be doing double duty this week. He goes to the Sports Exchange. So we're going to have a lot of stuff coming from Southern California. But you know what? We're going to start the show off a little bit different tonight. We're going to start off with the Golden Bachelor, people. The next Golden Bachelor says he doesn't want anyone as old as him on the upcoming season of the ABC reality show. And Mel Owens, that Mel and I are so familiar with, who's 66 years of age, is from Detroit and is a former linebacker from the Michigan Wolverines. He was actually selected 9th overall by the LA Rams in 1981. Would not be keeping around if she were older than 60. I had an opportunity to interview him at the 2024 NFL Draft in Detroit. Well, Mel, what are your thoughts about our buddy Mel Owens? You don't want nobody older than 60.
I don't blame him. I mean, my uncle used to say, if you ever hear me getting in trouble and there's an old woman involved, go hire an attorney. He said, I don't like nothing old but money. So I understand it. I mean, he could have thought it. He didn't necessarily need to say it out loud, but he could have thought it. But I don't fault him at all. I really don't.
Mel Owens doesn't speak anything unless it is out loud. I know him. I don't know if you know him, Marvin, but I got an opportunity to interview him. He's a pretty nice guy, though.
Okay, yeah. Listen, I hear him. All I see on TV are ED advertisements, ED medication. This man, listen, he got money. He got some medication. You want to get him a young tenderoni. I get it. He's Hollywood, man. This guy Hollywood. He's a successful attorney, I believe. And, now he's a TV star, and he got what you call options. He got options. So if he wants to put an age limit on it, hey, more power to him. Live your life.
All right, Tommy, what do you think?
If we're talking about a reality show and the dumbing down of America, I don't know anything about it. If you want to talk about football players named Mel Farr, how about that one? Mel Blount.
But no, you ain't talking about Mel Owens. You're telling me you ain't talking about Mel Owens. That's okay. I don't care. But you get every knowledge so far. Mel Owens, stand out, University of Michigan. I know your favorite school that isn't wearing green and white, right?
What I would expect from a Michigan guy on a dumb reality show.
There you go. That says enough, Tommy. Don't worry about it. You didn't have to say a lot, but you said enough. That was good. All right, Candy.
These reality shows, the Golden Bachelor. I mean, it's real. Is it reality or is it? It's entertainment, and that's what it is. But good for him. Hey, everybody can pick who they want to be with, and if he wants to put an age limit on it, go for it. But would I ever like a show like that is very out there. I don't know that I'd ever want to be that public like they are on the show. But hey, some people, he's got money, he's a lawyer, he can do it. Good for him. I mean, people watch that like that. They watch it. Good for him.
Steven? Steven. Okay, I'll give my 2 cents, and we'll see if we can get Steven back at it. Number one, I met Mel. He's a really super
I haven't
nice.
even been able to grab anything you're talking about. You guys have been the internet's been so in and out.
All right, well, we're talking about
can't
Mel
even
Owens.
grasp what you're talking about.
Well, the Golden Bachelor. Okay, he says he's not going to date anybody
You got
older
dial-up
than
internet?
60. All right. Did you get that part, Stephen?
He's having
I
internet.
got it, but
Do you understand it?
I got nothing for you, brother.
Okay, that's good enough. Okay, that's good enough. He's got nothing for me. Don't worry. Don't worry. He'll have plenty for me on the next topic. You know, this might be a little bit older than he's able to handle anyway. Anyways, the bottom line is I did get to know Mel Owens really well. And considering he is a successful attorney, played in the NFL with the Rams, the guy can get whatever he wants. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because of him and the fact that I got to know him real well during a one-on-one interview, which you can actually see on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. We got into a lot of things. We talked about his career at Michigan and what he's done afterwards. And I think the one thing that we can all appreciate on this panel isn't what you do on the field, but it's what you do after your post career. And that's the one thing that Mel Owens seems to have figured it out. So, Marvin, anything you want to add to that before we go on to
Yeah,
some big upset?
I played with Melo.
Oh, did you? Yeah. What was that
I
like?
did.
Okay. What kind of a teammate was he?
Folks are real nice. When we traveled to Germany, his dad and his mom and dad hung out with my mom and dad. You know, it was, you know, Melo was a good dude, always a good dude.
Yeah, he's really one of the. Yeah, I don't watch those reality shows myself, but when I saw that he was involved, I had no choice. I wanted to bring it up, and I know Mel Farr told me that he had a connection with him before. And since there is a little Southern California business out there, why not? So, but that said, we'll continue to go on with something I know a lot of people do know about, and that's the UCLA Bruins. Okay, yes, this will be a big Southern California show. And we're going to talk about the upset that probably went out there and may have James Franklin in a boatload of hot water. And I mean a boatload of hot water. And there's a lot of layers to this bad boy. There really, really, really is. And we'll actually talk about the fact that James Franklin, first of all, falls to 4-21 against top 10 teams as the Penn State coach. That's not item number one. But now here's a bigger picture of this. The UCLA Bruins have no permanent head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator going that was actually going into the game. So the people that I'm referring to are Deshaun Foster, Tino Sunseri, and the defensive coordinator Ayaka Malloy. Now, for UCLA, they're the first 0-4 team to beat a top 10 opponent since 1985. Three coaches actually were filling in, and I already mentioned the interim people. But let's stop the winless jokes, people, about UCLA. They defeated Penn State 42-37, and prior to the game, the Nittany Lions' 34-game winning streak versus unranked opponents was snapped. Hats off, though, to 33-year-old head UCLA offensive coordinator Jerry Neuheisel, who actually called a heck of a game. And I know his dad, Rick Neuheisel, was cheering like you couldn't believe. So with that said, okay, as we talk about it, quarterback Nico Lamaleva went 17 of 24, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 13 carries, 128 yards, 294 total yards. He had 5 total touchdowns, and UCLA was the only team going into the game that hadn't led a single second. Boy, that's an awful lot to go out there and digest. We'll start off with you, Mel. What are your thoughts about what took place with the Bruins at the Rose Bowl?
I was pleasantly surprised. I was at work. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I was at work and wasn't watching the game, to be honest with you. I think I got an update on the score. I think it was like 14-0. I think I saw. I think it was 14-0. I said 14-0. What's going on? Then I turned on the game. It looked like a whole new team out there. It looked like they went to transfer portal and got a whole new group of guys out there, because that didn't look like the same team from. And I didn't watch much of them the first couple of weeks, but that certainly didn't look like the same team that was out there the first 4 weeks. That looked like a different team out there. They played inspired football. They played complementary football. They looked like they were having fun. I really expect Penn State to be. I expected Penn State to be upset because they had just lost to Oregon. James Franklin has had a difficult time beating these ranked opponents. I didn't think they would overlook UCLA. Obviously, it seems that they thought all they had to do was show up and that would be enough. But when they got there, they found out that they were in a dogfight, and I was pleasantly surprised. And UCLA got out early and just hung on there and came out with the W. And I think it's great for those kids. You know, Rick Neuheisel, who's Jerry Neuheisel's dad, was leaving UCLA as I was coming in. He used to come around and he used to help coach and stuff like that. So I know Rick very, very, very well, and was really, really happy for him. I can understand, you know, being a father, how he can be, you know, how he's so proud of his son, and his son, he's where he wants to be. And that's, you know, he said in the press conference that, you know, he loves UCLA, and you could see that he loves UCLA. And I'm glad the kid got an opportunity. When I heard they fired the offensive coordinator this week, I'm like, oh my God, they might as well just mail it in, man. I mean, what are they going to do here? And they said they're going to let him call plays. I knew he really never called plays before. But boy, was I pleasantly surprised. Different teams showed up. You know, hopefully this carries over. You know, I don't want to get too excited, but yeah, we're going to get excited for the victory, because that one win is important, and especially playing a team like Penn State. You know, they're able to go out there and play with that same type of energy and enthusiasm and execution. You know, they can beat anybody. That's why they play the games. You know, you don't know what's going through the mind of these 18 to 22-year-old kids. And obviously Penn State, their mind was somewhere else. And, you know, one thing I heard, you know, Kirby Smart say when Georgia lost to Alabama, said, hey, you know, we got to put this behind us. We can't let this one loss become two losses. And it looked like Penn State allowed that one loss to become two losses, and hopefully for them it doesn't become three losses. And for James Franklin, you know, obviously I'm torn. I like him as a coach, but of course they're playing my Bruins. I hated for it to happen to him, but it couldn't have happened from a better team or better university.
I figured you'd feel that way from a guy that played as a rival. What are your thoughts about what UCLA pulled off at the Rose Bowl, Marvin?
So honestly, my first thought is this: when I was in high school, Rick Neuheisel recruited me to Colorado. It was his first year. He was going into his first season. He was in his first off season. He hadn't coached him yet, and he was really great, man. He was cool. He was a nice dude. He was straight up, easy to talk to, easy to deal with. And I left that, you know, situation having a lot of respect for him. So I'm happy for his family. To be honest, I thought UCLA was looking at 0-12. I thought this was a historically bad team, and I thought that was going to be their result. The reality is leadership matters. What Jerry did is he went in there and he provided some energy, some juice. What they had to do is shake things up. You know, you fire your OC, that's crazy. Demote him, if anything, right? Because he's a high caliber coach if he's an OC, so you can use him somewhere on that staff. You don't know if they had conflict or whatever it may be, or he didn't want to agree to any kind of change. I don't know, but you know, you're dealing with kids. These are some of these people were in high school 3 or 4 months ago. You know, so you know, energy matters. Being able to pitch greatness and pitch, you know, the idea of finishing this season is a big thing. The players bought in. You saw it out there. You saw different energy, different offensive flow for them. It puts the defense in a bad position when they don't have a history or a track record of the OC. So Jerry Neuheisel going in there and calling plays, that threw them off a little bit. With that said, that wasn't really an excuse for Penn State. Penn State has a big money roster. They have, and you know, they were some people had them as the number one team in the nation going into the season. So this is a huge fail, an epic fail for Penn State. It's arguably one of the biggest wins in the history of college football, and it should provide these players with some momentum and some excitement about what it could be. It's frustrating for both teams, for both fan bases, because for UCLA, you just beat one of the top teams in the country. So you're wondering, man, with better leadership, and better play calling, what could we have been, going into week 4, week 5, right?
Right.
If you're Penn State, you're like, we're the top team in the nation. How do we lose to literally what was the worst team in FBS this year up to this point, right? So great win for UCLA. Jerry Neuheisel just made him a lot of money, And, it'll be interesting to see if this is an anomaly or if they are who we think they are.
Well, Stephen, we're talking about UCLA's upset.
Still hurts. I'm a Penn State guy, so that stung. But listen, as we say, any given Sunday, any given Saturday, it doesn't matter where your program is. You downplay how good the other team is. You underestimate them in any way. They tend to be the underdog fighter. They tend to punch you in the mouth, and you're in a dog fight that you weren't ready for because you thought these guys were cream puffs. So I think when you look at it from the UCLA side thing, obviously it's something they can hang their hat on to show that, hey, we're not the third cousin twice removed out here in California. We are a good team. We are a good program. For Penn State, that stain ain't coming off. That stain ain't coming out. It's set in there. It's done. You can't take that back. You were tracking to be one of the top two, maybe three teams in college football. Now we should start looking down there in Miami because it's looking like it's the Miami right now. Obviously, we're 5 weeks in, so can't really say too much about it. But that's if you're a Penn State alum, that's a kick in the gut.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Miami Hurricanes in a couple of minutes. Tommy, this upset was big. What are your thoughts on what actually happened?
Yeah, it's baffling. Of all the post game and highlight shows during the week, I haven't heard a explanation to explain what happened. Because like Marvin, I think Marvin said it looked like they were on their way to an 0-12 season. A lot of people were thinking that. And I know James Franklin's taking a lot of heat. But let's not forget they paid Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator, $3.1 million to come over from Ohio State. The guy's getting paid $3.1 million, and they give up 45 points. You can see the offense coming up flat. That's part of football. And the defense getting beat on some plays, but 45 points. Jim Knowles needs to be held accountable too. The only thing I can think of is, we'll touch on this later about the Florida Gators playing unlike they had earlier in the year, is, we're paying these guys now.
Right.
And maybe they're starting to produce the way pro teams produce. Bad pro teams sometimes beat good pro teams. Look at all of a sudden New England was able to beat Buffalo. So maybe it has something to do with the players being paid now. Some are ready to play, some aren't. And it's baffling. I hope for at least 1 week they return to their old form. And then after that, I wish them well.
And we'll talk about the undefeated teams where
they're playing at Michigan State next week. And that's one of the things Jonathan Smith said is, whatever planning they did before, the Michigan State coach this week, is whatever planning they did before, they've got to throw all that out and go by this Penn State game because, as I understand it, Neuheisel not only took over as offensive coordinator, he changed the offense. Maybe Mel knows a little more about that than could add some more light on that, but he changed the offense on just 2 days practice.
Well, and, you know what?
But here's the other thing that I didn't mention.
What's that?
UCLA does have a talented roster. So it's not like they were coming out there with undrafted and 2-star players and suddenly shocked Penn State. I don't know how many 4-star guys are on there. Certainly their quarterback's an elite player. So they have a lot of talent, and for whatever reason, it never came together until now.
Well, Candy?
If you had told me before the game that UCLA was gonna have more total yards, time of possession 39 minutes to 20 minutes for UCLA. I would have been like, are you crazy? And then the final score. Let's face it, where the defense was, I don't know. Like for either team, I mean that's a pretty high scoring college game against two teams that we thought were going in opposite directions. But maybe UCLA said, you know what? We have pride. We just got two of our coordinators fired. Maybe we need to step up as a team and play better. And like Steven had said, maybe Penn State, kind of overlooked them. Maybe looking to their next opponent. I don't know who Penn State plays this next week. They play Northwestern. Maybe they overlooked them and said, hey, they're going to be a cakewalk. Let's kind of, focus in on the following week. I don't know. But like someone said, any given team can beat any given team on any given day. So that's why we play the game, right?
That's true. Well, the one thing I should ask everybody on the panel, and that's this, okay? Judging by what Jerry Neuheisel did, there is an opening. Don't you think, I'm going to ask everybody to comment on this. I know they have to do a coaching search, but I would think you have your candidate right there with Jerry Neuheisel, and you could get Nico Lamalova straightened out so you don't have to hear about where he's going to transfer next. Because all you're going to read about over the next several is he going to transfer here, and all of a sudden, Jerry Neuheisel is the answer to getting this guy's numbers on track. And I'm sick and tired about where Nico's going to go next. This is getting really, really old for me. And maybe Jerry Neuheisel is the answer. Maybe as a head coach. At this point, what do you got to lose? Because the Neuheisel name is associated with UCLA anyways. We'll start with you, Mel, and then we'll turn it around and we'll talk about the Florida Gators next.
Yeah, my brother and I were talking about that. And it doesn't sound like a bad idea, to be honest with you. But, again, let's settle down here a little bit. It was one game. Let's see how the rest of the season plays out. I like what they did last week against Penn State, but I'm going to be a little reserved here and just say let's just hold on a second here. I like what I saw, but and I like the fact that he's a UCLA guy. And that's the job that he covets, is the UCLA job. That would be great. If this were the movies, that would be great. But this is real life. So let's just, let's settle in our saddles for a minute and let's see how the rest of the season plays out. And ask me this question around, Turkey Day.
All right, it's a good thought. Okay. Hi, Eddie. Good to have you in. All right, Marvin, what are your first impressions? Mel might be right. We might be premature, but so what?
So I think it actually would be smart for UCLA to really look at him, because when you look at their history, I don't know that they want to spend or they can spend big money on a big name coach, which is what they really need. They need a presence to go up in there. But Jerry is a diehard UCLA guy, from what I understand. Obviously, with who his dad is, and he went to UCLA and stuff. So. Listen, Mel's right. It's one game. And it really, to be honest with you, it almost means nothing, because this week coming up is a whole new opportunity, a whole new challenge, And if they go out there and get their butt beat, then this is all for nothing. So right now, you would think that he has an inside track. You would think it makes sense. In regards to the quarterback, listen, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, unless he signed a multi-year deal and they make him honor the contract. He's actually making him some money right now. That was a big win for Nico, huge win for him. So in a college football era where you have free agency and the player can go to the highest bidder, even if he loves Jerry, I think he loves money even more. And you got a lot of teams down south that are willing to spend that bread to get them a quarterback like Nico, who for college football I think is very good. So not great. He's good. He's good. He's good.
Steven. Well, now you see him, now you don't. But we will go to Tommy Shanahan, and then we'll see Steven again.
Well, I was going to add his dad loves money. His dad seems to call the shots. We don't know what kind of program he can run. Obviously, there's a lot bigger picture than one game. We don't know what kind of program we can run. We're fighting. I think we're going to touch on North Carolina later. we're finding out Bill Belichick may know how to coach, but he doesn't know how to run a college program. And the question, the thing we didn't touch on, and I think we have two guys that experienced it, both as maybe not so much as college players because you played more on the West Coast then, but there's a lot of discussion about the time zone differences with Big Ten teams traveling to the West and Pac-12 teams traveling to the Midwest and the East. You guys might have experienced more of those time zone changes as pros, but what are your thoughts on Marvin and Mel on all this getting lots of attention?
Listen, my thing is this. It doesn't matter if the game's at 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. You have an assignment. You have a job to do. You know the play, and you know what what the deal is. So listen. Is it a factor? Yeah, it's a factor. But you know something? It don't matter. It doesn't matter. It's anywhere, anytime, any place. You guys knew. These teams know that these games are going to be early. They try to prepare for it, flying in early and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, that's an excuse. That's an excuse to me. It's a factor, but it's an excuse.
Yeah, the one guy that seems to be talking about it more than anybody is Mick Cronin, the basketball coach. Well, he's really talking it up. So it's a fair question, but again, when UCLA joined the Big Ten, they knew that the travel situation was going to be one of those challenging things. So if you're going to take the money, then you have to bite the bullet, and that's what they're doing. All right, Stephen, Jerry Neuheisel, real quick. We'll let Candy, and then we're going to talk about the Florida Gators. And yes, Eddie Pradley, UCLA players look like they were playing much better under Skipper than they did under Foster. Go ahead, Stephen. Stephen, some thoughts about Jerry Neuheisel.
I haven't been anything you guys have been talking about again.
Okay, go. All right, Candy.
So it's one game, and you can't judge anybody, I don't think, on one game. Yes, the question would be to me is, who's the best candidate out there? Who's out there? Who's available? That matters. Does it matter that he loves UCLA? Of course that matters, because someone that loves that team is gonna do better and do everything he can. I kind of equate it to like Mario Cristobal down here in Miami. He played for Miami. He wants to keep that tradition, alive and strong. But then again, who is the best qualified for the job? So does he have a shot? Of course he does. But this, again, was only one game. We'll see how he ends, how he does this next week and going in, and we'll just see where it lands.
Yeah, well, I think Mel summed it up. Turkey Day is a good barometer. All right, let's go down and talk about the Florida Gators. They're a big part of this weekend. Unranked Florida Gators defeated Texas 29-21. Let's get off Billy Napier's back already, people in Gainesville. Come on. Really? Seriously? Really? Or the way my hat says, seriously? Really? Seriously? Give me a break. This guy, to me, needs enough time. I know that everybody, since Urban Meyer left, all you're thinking about is signing the next Urban Meyer. Like, give Billy Napier a break. Let's talk about what happened here. And Steve Spurrier was very outspoken on the hype of Arch Manning. They've got Arch Manning already winning a Heisman. And he also goes on to say, if he was that good, how come they let Quinn Ewers play all the time, and who was drafted by the Miami Dolphins? So that's item number one. Now, Steve Sarkisian had an answer, for his credit, saying Sark fires back at calling Texas for not having a Power 4 win. Have them go play at Ohio State and the Swamp, see how they do. Oh, my goodness. Sark, that to me is the most interesting comeback, what it is. But here's what we have to understand. First of all, Tommy, let's talk about the performance that the Gators had, okay? Give them their due. They came up ready for this football game.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier about UCLA. They've got talent, and we seem to have crossed over into a pro football era with college sports, and it's harder to predict. There seems to be more balance. Maybe that's part of it. With the NIL money and revenue sharing, there seems to be more balance. You certainly don't have what it was with Alabama when they were 5 deep with 5-star running backs or whatever, quarterbacks. Right. And Alabama just had a clear advantage on talent. The talent may be spreading out more, and Florida has they got to have plenty of 4-star and 3-star players. I don't know how they can. And for whatever reason, it's just harder now at the college level to win consistently every week because the talent might be closer to each other than it's ever been.
Mel?
Well, I think it's harder to win, obviously, because they're playing bigger games now. They're playing meaningful games earlier in the year. And, it doesn't seem that Arch is him. He, I think they put a lot of stock in him being, Heisman Trophy front runner. They basically already gave him the Heisman Trophy before he even really showed us anything. And he's having a much more difficult time adjusting to the college game than I think a lot of people had originally thought. So, you see why Quinn Ewers was, why he had the keys to the building all this time, because Arch just wasn't ready. And so they're having a difficult time to getting consistent play out of that position. If you don't have consistent play in that position, you're going to struggle. And you see that with Texas. And, a lot of people have been very, very high on Steve Sarkisian. I know he coached over there at SC. I've never really been high on him as a coach. And I think, he's getting a little bit complacent. I think he's starting to believe a lot of the things that people are saying about him, that he's a genius, he's a guru, quarterback guru, offensive guru, all those different types of things. I never thought he was, Nick Saban or type of coach, or, even Kirby Smart. I thought he was an okay coach. I never thought he was what everybody was proclaiming him to be. And I think it's starting to show now, because we know he has the talent, because they spend big money down there in Texas. And it's starting to catch up with him now. Now, the first couple of years, they beat Alabama or played Alabama real close. That's easy. Everybody gets up for Alabama, and you're going to catch them every now and again. You're going to catch them, and you might beat them. But now they have, it's not fun when the rabbit has the gun. Now the rabbit has the gun. They're no longer the rabbit. So they're the hunted, and it's a little bit different when you're the hunted, and they're not. You got to understand the mindset that you have to have week in and week out when you are the one that's being hunted. You have to go out there and be prepared to play and execute every week in and week out. Not sometimes, not most of the time, but you have to be able to execute all the time. And you're seeing that Texas is just not doing that.
Marvin?
So I think with Florida, I think that the bigger question or the bigger issue really is we're seeing the impact of the transfer portal and how teams are losing depth. And you don't have these teams being able to stack position groups because of that. A lot of players at these big schools are going to other big schools. Some of them are going to lesser schools. So what you're seeing are some of the lower FBS schools be a little bit more competitive. And you've seen that already this year, where some of these SEC teams have struggled against lower FBS schools because they now have guys who were recruited at 4 and 5 star who bounce down. So with Billy Napier, I think he's a good coach. I think that people need to change their expectations. I think this is the year where people needed to really change their expectations of teams and be more open to, let's play it out and just see what we have. Because, Georgia isn't the same. Alabama isn't the same. Ohio State and Oregon look pretty good, but even the jury's still out on them. But a lot of these teams, there's a lot of parity. So I think Florida fits right into that. I don't think we're seeing a bad Florida team or a bad Billy Napier. I think we're seeing the parity in the SEC and in college football. And, it is what it is. And we need to adjust to that, because I think like for this year, for example, I think this whole thing is up for grabs. UCLA just beat Penn State. This whole thing is up for grabs right now. And you're going to have teams with 2 and 3 losses in the playoffs. You may get a team like UCLA who's 1 and 4, runs the table, beats top teams and gets in there. So you never know how this plays out.
Right.
I think it's wide open for Florida, and I think Florida still has an opportunity to be competitive.
Yeah, great points all the way around. What people have to understand is next year a lot of teams are going to be playing 3 non-conference games and 9 conference games. You think it's complicated? Now wait till you see next year. And not only that, when you also look at the fact that when Texas and Oklahoma came into the Southeastern Conference, they're going to find themselves culture shock in this conference, and that's exactly what they're getting hit. It's not the Big 12 anymore, where you can get by with 1 or 2 losses. They're going to be facing heavy hitters every single day. Candy?
Let's face it, Florida was embarrassed from their results against Miami. They were upset, they were mad, and they were motivated to go into Texas because they thought everybody was like, oh, Florida's a pushover. Look at how Miami manhandled them for a while. Look at how the defense stacked up against Florida's offense. Florida was possessed and motivated to go in and to be competitive with Florida, and not just, with Texas, and not just competitive, but they fell out of the top 25. They wanted to show people that they could do better, and that's exactly what they did. They went into Texas and showed everybody that they could compete and beat Texas.
Yeah, let's face it, the Florida Gators are a team that DJ Legway is a pretty good quarterback. All right, Steven, we're talking about Florida beating Texas. Any thoughts about that game? Steven?
Not really. Yeah. No.
Okay. All right. Well, now let's talk about the Miami Hurricanes, because the Hurricanes obviously are the state champions. Let's talk about what you have with the Canes. Here's a team that ended up beating, my alma mater, South Florida Bulls, 49-12. The Florida Gators 26-7, and obviously they beat Florida State 28-22. We're going to get to that in a moment. So with that said, when you talk about the Miami Hurricanes, they were actually they ended up beating FSU 28-22 behind Carson Beck with 4 touchdowns. 2 were to Malachi Tony, both for over 40 yards. Now, the Hurricanes had a big lead in this game. So I'm going to go back to a throwback game where Steve Walsh ended up hitting Michael Irvin late in the game in this particular contest. Miami trailed 19-3, and they came back to win the game 26-25. We know, Tommy, you're a big historian about that. Let's talk about what the Miami Hurricanes did to Florida State first, because you were glad that Thomas Castellanos went out there and lost because you were adamant about it. Now let's talk about the Hurricanes, when they stormed back a long time ago to win against Florida State in terms of where they're currently at now.
Yeah, well, I never really thought Florida State was that good, so they've lost 2 in a row now. We'll see how their season ends up. I think the thing to consider, is talking about all the roster changes that are so prevalent in college football nowadays. Is you got to have a team culture, a coach, team captains that can keep everybody together. And I don't have the numbers to back this up, but just in general, Miami brought in, of course, Carson Beck, and he's doing a great job at quarterback. But in general, if you look at those top 3 teams, Ohio State, Oregon, and Miami, I would bet that they've had the least roster turnover of a lot of the top 20 teams. So that would be the thing that I would be looking at. One reason Miami's doing so well.
Mel? Mel?
You're asking about the game, the Miami Florida State game?
Yep.
Yes, I am.
That was the question. Yeah.
What were your thoughts on the game?
Am I frozen?
Nope, you're good right now.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay, you were asking about the Miami Florida State game.
Yes.
What I thought about it, my thoughts on that. I was
Mm-hmm.
daydreaming
Right.
a little bit. I watched the game a little bit. I didn't watch it a whole lot. I was impressed by how Carson Beck played. I wasn't really high on the guy for whatever reason, but I was very impressed. Played. The quarterback Castellano wasn't very impressed by the way that he played, especially after all the talking he did this week when they played against Alabama. I expected a little bit more from him in this particular ball game, and didn't see that. And it was a struggle. Miami looks for real. They look like one of the top 5, if not top 2 teams in the country. And definitely looks like they are ready to contend for a national championship. Looks like they're ready to be the U that of old from the mid to late 80s. It's exciting when the University of Miami is good. It's unfortunate that Florida and Florida State are struggling in the way that they're struggling, because college football is always better when all 3 of those schools are playing well. But Miami was impressive, I have to say. I mean, they were impressive the way that they went out there and took care of their business.
Yeah, that throwback game too, where they were trailing 19-3, and Steve Walsh to Michael Irvin for the game-winning score was just something that always go back down in the history of that rivalry. Mel, let's face the reality; these 2 schools have had a big rivalry over the years, and now Florida State was down big in this game, right, Candy? And then they ended up coming back. So why don't you go ahead and take it from there? Then we'll switch it over to Marvin, because that was a big deficit that Florida State nearly overcame.
They did, but you know what kind of surprised me is we're praising Miami and we're saying that they're really good, but yet they sputtered at times too. I mean,
Right,
let's face it, Florida State had 29 first downs. Miami only had 14.
right.
Florida State had 404 total yards. Miami had 338. Time of possession is pretty much the same. Now, where some of the differences are. Here's one thing I'm going to say. Florida State had 2 fumbles, one that they actually lost, one that they didn't. But the one thing that surprised me about Miami, and Miami's had problems with this, 13 penalties for 114 yards. If they want to be number 1 and going for the national championship, there are some things that they really do need to do to clean up. At times they sputtered, and they've sputtered in a couple of the games where they had really good drives, and then they had drives that I'm like, what happened? What happened to the offense? What happened to them? So, Miami is for real, yes, but are they as good as their record says? I'm not convinced just yet.
Well, think about this. Mario Cristobal was born on September 24th, 1970. Recently had a birthday, and now his birthday is going into the bye week. This guy here is certainly sitting 5-0, won a state championship, and he'll have a bye week and he'll have a couple home games coming up. So, Marvin, as you evaluate the Miami-Florida State game and look at the history of that game a few years ago when Michael Irvin and Steve Walsh connected, then you look at where we are at the current. What are your thoughts about where the Miami Hurricanes are now and what occurred back on that particular day?
Listen, Cristobal comes from some of the greatest eras of Miami football, winning a national championship, being an All-American. He understands that culture without question, and he's bringing that culture back, and that's what you see really. They look like the teams from the early '90s and the '80s when I watched them, to be honest with you. And for me, what's really impressive is Carson Beck, when he was transferred, and there was you had questions about what are you going to get now, like, what are we going to see? And I'm hearing some of these experts, pundits saying he's back into the first round now, just based on how he's playing. So if he continues to play at that level and they continue to win, this is a 1-0 type of season. You don't care about the rest of the season. You want to win this week. And they've done that every week for 5 weeks. And the fact that they're the state champs tells you that these guys are serious. Listen, there is talent at Florida State. There is talent in Florida. Miami just beat both of them. Miami is the real deal. Like anybody else, they can be beat. Candy just pointed out some of their issues. They can be beat, but they got to start an 11 on both sides of that ball. The defense is real. The defensive ends are real, and I think that based on their schedule, from what I saw, from what I can remember, I don't know they have any juggernaut stuff. I think they beat some of the best teams that they had on their schedule. So for them can these kids keep it together? Can Mario keep these guys focused week after week? And if they can do that, I mean, they're gonna have a nice ranking, a nice seeding in the playoffs.
Yeah, you're right. Candy, you can look up the schedule. Tom, you already commented on this, right, so far? So Candy will look up the remaining schedule.
Schedule is they play the 17th at home versus Louisville, the 25th at home versus Stanford. They go November 1st at SMU. They come back home, play Syracuse. They are at home versus North Carolina State. Then they go to Virginia Tech, and they go to Pittsburgh.
Okay, you know something? I take that back because some of those programs are respectable, and some of those those aren't cakewalks. I mean, you're going to have to really respect VTech. You're going to have to respect Syracuse, Pitt. There are some teams on that schedule left, so we'll see. But I think I believe the U's on the right track for real.
I couldn't agree more. Well, speaking of Syracuse, the ACC is buying Fran Brown and Syracuse $25,000 for feigning injuries and an upset win over Clemson. As if Clemson needed any more excuses to lose the game, giving fake injuries. Get real out there. Fran, $25,000 for faking injuries. You're way better than them. Why did you have to do that? $25,000. Who's fitting the bill? All the journalists should get a degree out of there. All right, Marvin, you can take the lead on this.
Yeah, that's been going on since the beginning of time. Ever since timeouts and all that's been instituted, you've had coaches strategically tell players to get down. So that is what it is. Finding him, the guy's a Division I head coach. That guy makes millions. He's not worried about 25 G's. He'll do it. He'll do it again. If that's all it costs, just for that, he'll do it again. If the timing is right and the situation dictates, that's chump change in a situation where you're trying to win the game. So yeah. I don't have a problem with them finding him. I think what he did is already within the culture of the game. I think it's just part of the strategy, part of the chess that these coaches play, back and forth. So it's part of the chess match. So, I don't look at him any kind of way negative. I don't have an issue with him being fined, and you're going to continue to see that at the college level without question.
Yeah, well, Dabo Sweetie, let's give him another excuse to lose the game already, although we'll get to him in a little while, what he did to Belichick. Now, what are your thoughts about Fran Brown and the feigning injuries?
Yeah, if it's not my mistake, or if it's my correct understanding, they actually find the school, right? If I'm not mistaken, whatever the case may be. I looked up, when I saw the topic there, I looked up to see what it was all about. And I thought they put rules in place to stop this. So is this the rule that they put in place to stop the faking of injuries late in games? Well, they took a timeout, right? They make them take a timeout. When a player goes down, if the ball is set or something like that, they have to take a timeout or something like that. I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, I really don't understand the faking injury thing. I really don't. So I don't have a whole lot to say on it. I mean, if he's playing by the rules, he's playing by the rules. If they've been doing it forever, which I understand that they have been. I don't recall us at UCLA. They probably did that stuff across the city at USC, but we didn't do that at UCLA.
Hey, by any means necessary, baby.
Okay, there you go. Candy?
I understand.
Faking these injuries is just not right. I mean, I'm glad he's getting fined because it's just trying to give you an edge, and it's part of the rules that you're not supposed to do it. So that's all I'm going to say.
Tommy?
Yeah, it's real disappointing to learn that they were doing this, because he was getting a lot of attention for winning at Syracuse, and they had the program on a roll, the season on a roll, I should say. So it's real disappointing to learn that he sunk to that level. And the other thing is, I just double checked this. The final score, and I remember the scores coming across the bottom of the screen when I was watching the other game. They were always in charge of the game. The final score is 34-21, but Clemson scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter when it was 34-14.
Right.
So to me, all he did was take a decisive win, was something they didn't really need to do. And that really disappoints me in him. And I think it'll follow him.
Yeah, I'm against taking injuries. I realize everybody's doing it, but I don't like it. 25 grand is a slap on the wrist. Now, every week I like to talk about a small program. I'm going to give Sacramento State football there too. And here's why. Because athletic director Mark Orr says, I think it's a great opportunity for our university and our entire Sacramento community to have a big time FBS football right here in Sacramento. And what's also interesting about this whole thing is that Shaquille O'Neal has been named the general manager of Sacramento State's men's basketball. As I understand it, it's a non-paying position. Maybe he'll be able to go ahead. I know it's not that he would be paid from them anyhow, but Sacramento State, to be honest, it's still pretty good when you see that, they're a Bay Area type of team trying to get in. I think, if I understand it, Candy will research it, trying to get into the Pac-12. But I'm really happy to see a school like Sacramento State, Mel, be able to take the plunge into FBS, and they seem to be going about it the right way. Marvin?
And the more the merrier.
Yeah. Listen, these colleges are for profit. NIL is big business. Gambling's booming. Sacramento State is a business. Don't get it twisted. There's all kind of opportunities there. And I think it's great to see a smaller school, college sports is full of traditional powers. It's all the same characters, so it's always good to, get that first Boise State story. Remember when Boise State really first hit the scene like 20 years ago? You kind of rooted for them because they were nobody. This is what you're looking at here. I saw that they have a top quarterback. They have a top quarterback right now, I think, a transfer. And they have Shaq in there. Obviously, he's a big name. So if they can put together some NIL packages, I'm sure Shaq can do some smooth talking and get them some ball players. And you're going to see Sacramento State, trying to get into that Pac-12 to get some of that big-time money that's coming in. This is big business, baby. Capitalism has no mercy, and college football is nothing but profitable.
Yeah, and there's no question. I think that the football program is heading in the right direction. It really, really is. So if they get a piece of that NIL and they become a lot bigger, Sacramento State will be a team that we'll be talking about a lot more, both not only basketball, but football-wise. All right, Mel.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit easier for them to do it basketball-wise because you don't have as many players. You don't have as many players that you have to pay, and it doesn't take as many players to change the program. You look at what Larry Bird did when he left Indiana and then went to Indiana State and what he was able to do. So if they're able to get one guy and you got the guy there, you got Shaq, he can get, anybody. You get one guy there, and then you have that kind of Gonzaga, kind of story where, a program comes from nowhere and all of a sudden, year in and year out, they're extremely competitive. And then they can work on that football because that's going to take a little bit more time because that's a lot of money. You got a lot more players. You got 100 guys now, I think, on scholarship now. Then you got to pay these guys as well with the $20 million or whatever the case may be. That's going to take a little bit more time. But basketball, they can get on the map immediately, especially when you have a guy there like Shaq.
Tommy?
Well, with football, I don't think I want to say they can't do it, except they might be able to do it because they have some kind of big-time booster with millions of dollars who's willing to spend it. And we can see what's happening at Texas Tech, where they have a booster who's opened up the vault and is paying guys lots of money, and they're getting big recruits. But other than the booster getting a lot of players with his money, with his open pocketbook, I don't see him doing it in football. San Diego State always thought that they were going to make the jump. When they had Don Coryell playing chess against everybody else with checkers when he was at San Diego State, throwing the ball like no other program in the country. But when the Coryell moved on to the Cardinals and later the Chargers, of course, when they tried to make the move up to the Western Athletic Conference and Mountain West, they've never been able to do it. They can't recruit in the shadow of USC and UCLA. Fresno State has always plateaued when they've made an effort to go into the big time. So I don't think a football program can do it. Boise State is the exception rather than an example. And part of that is, they're the number one team in their state, number one university in their state. And they hit it big with Chris Peterson as the coach. They won the lottery with him as a coach. But basketball, of course, is a different story. And San Diego State has shown that in basketball there. They are able to compete at a national level in basketball, but they've never been able to do it in football.
Tom, don't forget about South Florida, FIU, right. FAU, smaller right. programs who, got a coach and had momentum and just blew up, for a season or so on the national scene. So, you never know. You never know.
Excellent point, Marvin.
Yeah, season or so, yeah, but as far as a steady program, I don't see it.
Look at FAU. Look at South Florida. Who were they, 40 years ago, right? They weren't part of the traditional college football talk. They are now. Well, but off and on. But it's not college fans now. They know FAU, they know FIU, they know South Florida. They know Boise State. You know what I'm saying? So, Sac State has a long way to go. I hear you, Tony. They got a long way to go if it's going to happen. But you never know.
All right, Candy.
Sacramento State is an NC2A Division I school, but its football program is in the Football Championship Subdivision, FCS, while its other sports will be moving to the Big West Conference as a full member starting July 1st, 2026, solidifying its status in Division I. The university had attempted to move its football program to the highest level of Division I, FBS, but was denied a waiver request by the NC2A as it lacked conference affiliation for football at that level. Now, they did try to go in. They had a long shot bid to join the Pac-12, but that was officially over. They withdrew that because they're going to the Big West. Sacramento State will be an independent in football at the FCS level at this time. So
I'm glad you got clarity on that. The Big West is where they're headed. But
yep.
I know there was a time where they were talked about going to the Pac-12. Yeah, and I just want to go back to a point that I made earlier about the Miami Hurricanes, the way they were able to get through the Florida teams. Because tell you one thing, to win a state championship here, by beating USF 49-12. I mean, Marvin, once upon a time, USF ended up beating Miami, and I saw Coach lose his job. In fact, I saw Randy Shannon lose his job. And then the way Miami handled Florida, and now they're winning against FSU. They certainly are one of the best things they have going there. But I'm glad you had some clarity there. But let's stay with Sacramento State for a moment, because former four-star quarterback Jaden Rashada has been benched at FCS Sacramento State. He's on his third school in 3 years. The timeline actually he goes by, he committed to Miami in 2022. Then and then he flips to Florida and signs in 2023. Decommits from UF 2023, signs with ASU in 2024, enters the portal and goes to UGA in 2025, and then enters the portal and goes back to Sacramento State. My goodness, for a school trying to get traction, Jaden Rashada is making roughshod of this NIL and portal thing. Marvin, save this guy, would you?
Yeah, this is really a sad story. This guy, he comes from the early days of NIL, which was just 3-4 years ago. He had signed that big $13 million deal. I think it was with the Gators, and it kind of fell through. And he's suing Florida, and he's bounced, I think, from Florida and Georgia, and now he's at Sac State. And this is when NIL didn't really have we didn't really have a grip on it. We're still working on it, but this is, again, we didn't really have a grip on it, and this kid really is a victim of that. And I hate to see it for him because talking about a 5-star quarterback in high school is someone who potentially is a pro prospect. So to see him, lose these first 3 years, not really get any productivity, definitely not get 13 mil or anything close to it if he's at Sac State, it's sad. And this is definitely one of the sad stories of the early NIL era. And you just hope this kid can rebound and do something because he apparently has some talent, but he's now playing at a lower school, not the same caliber of coaching he would have got at Florida or Georgia, and and he just got benched. So, again, you hope and pray he can turn it around, but it's not looking good.
Mel?
Yeah, this is an unfortunate story of the NIL. And it goes back to what I've been talking about for a while. Kids are they going to the school that they dreamed of going to when they were young kids, or are they just going to whoever's going to pay them the most money? I attended the school that I dreamed of going to. I'm sure that Marvin, he always wanted to be a prophylactic when he grew up, and that's why he ended up going to the school that he ended up going to. I always wanted to be a Bruin, so that's why I went to UCLA. So it's sad, because they're chasing money, and unfortunately, this kid has not, he hasn't gotten comfortable. He hasn't got anywhere, and now you go from Miami to Florida. And then you ASU or Georgia, then you go to ASU, then you end up at Sacramento State, and you get benched at Sacramento State. I mean, what is that saying about you as a player? So, his chances of making it to the league are long now, and he's really got. I think he might be getting bad advice, and so he's got to sit down somewhere and allow himself to be coached up. And I think a lot of it has to do with these players. They're so coddled, all the way from Pop Warner all the way up, where nobody really pushes these kids. They just tell them how great they are, but they don't really, teach them. They don't really coach them up. And not only just coaching them on the field, but just coaching them in life in general as well. So it's unfortunate because I know the kid obviously has a lot of talent because I think he was the number one player in that class. I know he's a 5-star recruiter. I've heard about him before, but it's just unfortunate that, this is the way that it's playing out for him.
Yeah, sure is. Tommy?
Yeah, what were his priorities coming out of high school? Apparently, it was all money and not anything to do with academics or working on techniques and fundamentals and becoming a student of the game. Or maybe he had, and who was in his ear? His dad, an agent. So he fell onto a path that it doesn't look like he's going to be able to get out of. He's fallen into a hole. For a while, I was concerned that the same thing was happening to Nico. I'm always afraid to pronounce his last name, Lamaliva, because he listened to his dad and lost all that money going from Tennessee to UCLA. And then he was stuck on this 0-4 team. Looks like he finally had a chance to show his talent, and he can still be something. He's not going to be anywhere near what the tragedy that this sad story that this Jaden Rashada guy is.
Candy?
I think Mel kind of hit something on like a nail on the head, that some of these kids that have come up, we keep telling them that they're so good and they're good, and they're not getting some of the hard-nosed coaching, we give participation awards now. They really need to coach them hard. And when I say hard, not over, I remember back in the day when I was playing tennis and I had a coach and we didn't do well. Then after the match or after the practice, we were running and touching lines and going and going and going. And you had to do so much after the practice and after the fact. I think, us putting these labels on these kids so early too sometimes hurts them as well. But it's unfortunate. You like to see recruits pan out, but then again, not everybody picks the right situation either. And that makes a difference too. And who you surround yourself with and around.
Good points all the way around. I'll just say this as I close the topic out because I want everybody to laugh at this. Morris the cat had 9 lives. How many more does this kid have left? Seriously, really?
We can't be mad at these kids for wanting to get money. We can't be that's the American way. Everything in society, everywhere. Their parents, TV, their friends tells them get money, get paid. It's the American way. It's what we do. The president said we're gonna make money. We're gonna make so much money. That's what these kids are taught. So we shouldn't be upset when they make these decisions. I'm just saying. I mean,
I'm not upset, but he's running out of places to go.
I'm not getting mad at him.
No, I'm just saying we have to understand. And also, capitalism has no mercy. In college football, youth football is no different. These adults have created marketing businesses where they target the kids. They tell the 10-year-old, "Hey, you're 10 years old. You're the number 1 point guard in America." And you get, what I'm saying? Like, so, it is what it is. This is again, capitalism has no mercy. That's what it is.
Yeah, I'll have to bring up capitalism in my next book. Marvin Powell said, "Capitalism is messing up college football." There we go. My main man Marvin. All right. Well, I think it's time for a little capitalism on our part called a station break. Go ahead, Candy.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company. We published a book. I have one copy right here. Here on the screen, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the industry and how it has changed. Go get your copy today. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can find a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you'd like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. If you want to advertise or sponsor any of our shows, call Scott 954-304-4941 if you have topic ideas. Either you can be in our chat room or you can email us if you don't want to be in the chat room. Email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. One last thing. If you see that red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, click it, like us, share us. Honestly, I don't know why you haven't done it already, but do it now. And then turn on your notifications so you're notified anytime we go live so you don't miss any good opportunities to watch us.
All right, Candy, thank you very much. We'll say one more college topic, and we have a few pro ones to go. Bill Belichick, our favorite person, got hammered by Clemson in Chapel Hill. 38-10, people. 38-10. And has lost his 3 games by 25 points. By the second quarter, the UNC fans left the stadium. Belichick and GM Mike Lombardi said their focus next year will be on recruiting freshmen. Tommy, is that going to work? Because nothing else seems to.
Yeah, North Carolina's looking pretty dumb right now. $10 million they paid this guy. And his son is the defensive coordinator for $1.3 million. So it goes against everything that North Carolina stood for under Dean Smith. And it's starting to come out. I don't know how much we don't have anybody on the record yet, but one of the local TV stations here, a reporter did a story about how it's a divided locker room. He's hearing from parents, and that Belichick is playing favorites with his players over the players he inherited. How much truth is that? We don't know, but what it really says is Belichick doesn't know how to run a program. He knows how to coach, but he doesn't know how to run a program. He made a great effort when he got here. He changed his personality. He wasn't Gumpy Gus like he was in New England with 1- and 2-word answers. He was very accommodating to the media, gave expansive answers, talked about what his vision. So he started off on the right foot. His 24-year-old girlfriend didn't help because she keeps embarrassing him, showing up on the sideline. But the other thing, I really, I don't want to say I enjoy seeing North Carolina lose or enjoy seeing a coach lose, but what I do like is I've always been sick of hearing people say Belichick's the greatest coach ever.
Right.
Because of his Super Bowl run. He won 6 Super Bowls in 24 years without Tom Brady. I wrote this down here somewhere. He was, he didn't have a winning season without Tom Brady as his quarterback. And how in the world did we forget about Vince Lombardi?
Right.
Vince Lombardi never had a losing season. He won 5 Super Bowls. They didn't have the Super Bowl for the first 3 NFL titles he won. 61, 62, 65 when they had to beat Cleveland and Jim Brown. And then he won the first 66 and 67. So essentially he won 5 world titles or Super Bowls in 9 years. He inherited a 1-10 team at Green Bay. They went 7-5-2 his first year. A bunch of those guys from a 1-10 team ended up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame because they played for Vince Lombardi. He spent 1 year as general manager because he burned out on coaching, and then he had to get back to it. He took over a bad Washington team, and in 1 season before he finally succumbed to his stomach cancer and died, he had a winning season. He never had a losing season, and he never had Tom Brady as his quarterback. 5 world titles in 10 years. I was getting sick of hearing Belichick's the greatest coach ever and fearful that someday some guy was going to say, let's rename the Vince Lombardi trophy to Bill Belichick trophy. Bill Belichick had 3 losing seasons at Cleveland. Nobody has Vince Lombardi's record.
I'm just glad he landed in North Carolina so he can break Don Shula's all-time record. That's okay. Leave Coach Shula alone. Let him stay at the top. That's all I have to say about it. Mel?
Yeah, he's finding out it's tough. I think Bill Belichick was kind of known as a grinder, and now he's doing yoga on the beach with his girlfriend and stuff like that. And he's spending a lot of time with his girlfriend and not enough time in the X's and O's of football. And college football is tough. It's different than the professional game, and so I think he's finding that out. And I've said it just like Tom is mentioning. I mean, Tom Brady's not coming back. I don't think he has any eligibility left, does he? And so it's going to be very, very difficult. We know what his record was with Tom Brady. We know what his record is without Tom Brady. And I don't know how old Tom's son is. I don't know, if he's going to be old enough to save Bill Belichick. But I mean, he obviously he didn't need the money. He wanted some extra money, and he was able to convince North Carolina to give it to him. More power to him, as Marvin talks about. Our country here, the capitalist society in which we live in, he's capitalizing on that. He's capitalizing on the fact that somebody still thinks that, he is the greatest football coach to ever walk the face of the earth. Sorry to say that, Tom. I don't believe that, but obviously somebody believes that because they gave him this opportunity. But he's finding out it's tough. And it's probably killing him too. You got guys like Dabo that are just beating him up, and the rest of the coach at TCU. You got that coach who was at Sonny Dykes or whoever that was. They're just wailing on him, and you're getting him when he's down, and it doesn't look like he's going to get up. He's and he needs somebody to come in there and give him a standing 8 count and just to walk him on. Just to walk him off into the sunset.
Yeah, it sounds like to me he's got a bullseye on his chest, and every college coach is taking a shot at him. All right, Marvin, go ahead. I know you got more to add to that.
Why are we celebrating The Bachelor, but we make Bill Belichick the devil? Why do we demonize old Bill, but The Bachelor, we're okay if he wants somebody 21 and anyway. Listen, with North Carolina,
hey, look, I'm not mad at him. He just needs to
Okay.
go to the house with that. I'm not upset with him.
I hear you, man. I hear you. You got a lot of old heads on Wall Street in their 60s and 70s. Got some young things, but anyway, this is more about the roster. They brought in 50 new players, and they got a lot of guys. I think they got a few guys from the FCS level, and the reason why you hear him talk about, we got to get freshmen is because he wants to do what he does best. He wants to develop talent. He wants to teach young raw kids how to play the game at a high level. And he has 50 transfers who have been taught all kind of habits, whatever it may be. Definitely not the Patriot way, I'll tell you that. And that's the issue with Bill is the roster. The reality is Bill Belichick should be coaching circles around these coaches in the ACC. It should be a coaching mismatch. And in many ways, it probably is, but it's not evident because of the lack of talent he has on his team. Bill Belichick is running this program no different from the Patriots, because that's what it is. They have a general manager, they have scouting, they have all that. His role, listen, he's coaching in college, so yeah, the demeanor and the energy has to shift, it has to change. Because you got to recruit people. You want people to choose you. You want people to pick you. So you got to smile and say the jokes and yada, yada, whatever. But at the end of the day, he's still the greatest coach of this era. He's still the greatest coach since the merger. And, in a game where, metrics matter, championships is the number one. And he has that in this era. So it is absolutely fair for people to look at him as the GOAT coach of this era. And I have no doubt that if he chooses to stick it out in North Carolina, and he gets in the freshman class and they sign these, 3-4 year agreements, I think he will develop kids. You don't do it in 1 year. It's tough. Look at, a lot of these coaches, some of the great coaches, in their first year coaching in college, Saban coached in the NFL. He went to Alabama. What was his first year? He may have had a winning record, maybe, I don't know, but he wasn't, 11-1. It wasn't one of those, 2012 teams. So Bill Belichick, if he sticks around, we're going to see the Bill that we know. And the coaching will show up in the win column. He has to get his players in there, and he needs time to develop them all.
Candy.
Scott, you said earlier that we have to give Billy Napier longer to prove himself at Florida. Now, how long has he been at Florida already? And yet we're going to quick to judge. And we've even talked about the NFL coaches that it's a win now or you're out. Like you have 1 year to prove yourself or you're out. Well, in college, that's hard. And especially, let's also say it, not every good NFL coach makes a good college coach, and vice versa. Some find their niche and they're good in that niche and they're not good in the other niche. Whether he's going to be a really good college coach remains to be seen. Now, the question will be, how long will he stay trying to do that? He can recruit, yes, but the problem is he came to the game later than some of these other ones that had already recruited. And do people go there just because of his name? Is that why some of the, the talent will go there, or some of the talent will go other places? I think in order to be fair, you have to give him a couple more years. You can't judge him just by a couple of games so far this year. It's an adjustment switching from being in the NFL to retired to now being a college coach again.
I'll go to one example that hits closer to home. We have a few more topics I want to get to. We're going to go to the pros in a minute. One that hits closer to home is Howard Schnellenberger. Let's face the reality. He went from the pros, and what did he do in college? Turned about around every college program on the planet. Built FAU from scratch. Did a whale of a job at Louisville. We know if it weren't for Howard Schnellenberger, the Miami Hurricanes would be no more. Mario Cristobal wouldn't have ever played there. That's how bad a shape it was. All right, well, you want to know a great place to get kickers? I'll tell you, but we'll preface it this way. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeated the Seattle Seahawks 38-35 on a last-second field goal. But get this. When it comes to kickers, the Grammaticos people, and there are a lot of them, the Grammaticos, are Tampa Bay's hometown kickers. We'll start off with Martin Gramatica, the Bucks, 1999 to 2004. Phil Gramatica, USF 98 to 2000. Nico Gramatica, USF to current. Santiago Gramatica was there from 2000 and 2004. And Gaston Gramatica is going to be signing on for 2026 going forward. Marvin, the Gramaticas, my goodness. And the Bucks beating the Seahawks by a field goal has a good field goal kick to it, doesn't it, when you tie the Gramaticas of this whole equation?
Listen, the Gramatica family is each one teach one. That's what it is. It's each one teach one. And this is the family business, baby. It's family business. And, you know, I know for me personally, I know Mel can say the same thing. I lived in a house with somebody who was in the profession I wanted to be in. I watched him every day, talked to him all the time, got all the pointers I could out of him. I milked that guy for information. And my father was absolutely willing to give me all the information and pointers he can. And there's no different in that family. I don't know them. I haven't met them. But for them to have that many kickers, successful players in NFL and college, you know, again, it's an each one teach one mentality. And they're passing down and sharing knowledge. And, you know, this is it's a master class. You know, when you're learning from, you know, the Gramatica of the 2000s, I mean, we're talking about, you know, one of the best kickers in the game. So kudos to that family. And, you know, I'm happy to see them carry the tradition on. Again, family business.
Sure is. Mel?
Yeah, that's kind of neat, you know. And kickers, they're getting paid about what running backs get paid, so that's not a bad deal now. So, you know, but if I would allow my kids to play, that would probably be the only position. I mean, my grandkids rather to play. That'd probably be the only position I would let them play. But yeah, that's great for them. Obviously, you know, they're doing something right. They understand, and you know, a lot about kicking is trust. And you know, when you have that name first and foremost, just like, you know, Arch Manning has that name, so there's a certain amount of trust that's associated with that because of what his uncles did in the league. When you have that Gramatica name, then they know you come from good stock, and you're going to get an opportunity. You know, that's one thing that you know is you're going to get an opportunity. And then, you know, if the coach trusts you, you know, you go out there and you perform, you know, you can have yourself a stellar career, 10, 15, 18-year career, kicking, making very, very good money. So, you know, that's good for them.
Candy?
It's good for them. And one other Gramatica, his brother Gatson also kicks field goals and served as Nico's holder on his kicks in high school. So when you have a brother, when you guys are practicing, let's face it, one holds, the other one kicks, and then you vice versa, and you switch it up. Hey, there aren't very many positions you can practice, just two people, you know, for a football field. Like you can throw, yes, you could be a quarterback and throw, but, you know, to be on a family like that and to pass it down in the same position, that's pretty cool. Pretty neat.
Tommy?
And what a special bond, too, that causes and creates.
Yeah, 5 kickers of the Gramaticas. That's a lot. Tommy?
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing story. I didn't know a lot about it before we started discussing it. What hits me is, you know, human nature is a lot of times you don't want to follow your dad or your brother or whatever. So I'm just guessing, but I would assume it's a pretty tight and supportive family that they're not afraid to follow in each other's footsteps and then take on that challenge and then also become successful. So that's very interesting.
I like to come up with some of these topics because I know in my mind that these are what defines football. You see the family, you see a lot of baseball families involved, you see a lot of hockey families involved. But to think that a family is involved when you're talking about kickers is surreal. One other college note, UNLV is 5-0 for the first time since 1974, thanks to Dan Mullen. Well, let's go ahead. Marvin, Dan Mullen's at it again, winning at UNLV.
And I bet you this is what you have in that roster. You have players who played in Power 4, who played at a high level, who were depth pieces. They were depth chart pieces, second, third string. Still, they're 3, 4 stars, 5 stars, and they bounce back. They bounce down to UNLV, to a lower school, a lesser school, and you get an elite coach or a guy who at least has coached at a high level. for a major program, and you give him some Power 4 athletes, but you put him in a conference that isn't the SEC, this is what you get, man. So get used to seeing these lower FBS schools, these non-traditional powers be competitive, because again, they have elite athletes there. UNLV has alumni, they have NIL, they got money in Vegas. So this is not surprising to me. Really, it's not surprising. We have to, as football traditionalists, I mean, we're really having to go through a process where we have to just relook at this whole thing and in rest of evaluation and how we value programs. And it's a different day. So kudos to him. And again, get used to seeing it.
We talked about this before. Dan Mullen was taking a lot of these guys from the SEC and the Big Ten and bringing them over to Vegas. Not a bad thing to do. And
Smart.
he was taking their scraps and turning them into fillets over at UNLV. And look what you have: 5 up, nothing down. That's 5-0, first time since '74. Mel.
Well, damn headache. You go in there, man. You weren't certain, what was going to happen there. We know he can coach. That's one thing that we know about him. So it doesn't surprise me that he's doing what he's doing out there in UNLV. UNLV's, they got money. Like Marvin said, they have money. They were paying guys back a long time ago when Tarkanian was there paying the basketball players. Right. So we know there's money there in Nevada. And it doesn't surprise me with that. And if you get some horses out there, you can, anything can happen. And obviously he's getting those horses still.
Candy.
Sports Illustrated Pat Ford recently gave his grades on the first-year head coaches around college football. He named UNLV Rebels head coach Dan Mullen the best first-year head coach in the country. He's done an outstanding job his first year. He goes on to talk about they've rebuilt the Rebels, who had just 5 returning starters, have been winning in the margins. They're tied for the national lead in takeaways with 13 and blocked 2 points for touchdowns against Wyoming on Saturday. They've also been much better on third down than their opponents, converting 49% of the time and allowing only a 22% conversion rate. Now, let's face it, the competition has been a little soft, but they did beat UCLA, which looks a little better this week than it did last week because of the win that UCLA just had. So he's doing, some really good things. Let's see if it continues.
Tommy?
Well, they've got a stadium to play in now. They play in an NFL stadium. They've got coaches now. Barry Odom before Dan Mullen got there. They never had coaches like that before. Or I should say they did have John Robinson try to coach there for a while, but they were playing in a dumpy old stadium. It was a junior college stadium that they expanded, and he couldn't recruit players there. They didn't have the transfer portal like they do now, that they can get guys to come there. So UNLV has potential now with the transfer portal, making more talent available, playing in an NFL stadium. They've got a good head coaches now. And the other thing is Las Vegas is a big city now. There's a lot more talent coming out of there than there ever was before. The challenge will be to keep them home. The USC quarterback is from Las Vegas, isn't he, Marvin? Jaden Maeva?
He went to UNLV. Yes, he was the freshman of the year at UNLV 2 years ago. Correct.
Yeah, and I think he's from Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas too.
I think
could be wrong about that, but that's an example of how talent comes out of that area. And now they've got the stadium and a head coach to attract talent from elsewhere and maybe keep some talent at home.
Okay, a few more things I want to get to tonight. Number one, the San Francisco 49ers and former Patriots quarterback defeated the Rams 23-20 in overtime last Thursday night to improve to 4-1. Mac Jones, 33 of 49, 342 yards, 2 touchdowns, 100.9 passing rate. Pretty good night's work, Tommy, for Mac Jones, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad to see there's so many stories of quarterbacks that are rebuilding their careers. And I always like the 49ers. I've always been a 49ers fan during the Bill Walsh days, and I know John Lynch, so uh, I have to root for the 49ers even before they got a Shanahan as a head coach. So, but yeah, you see a lot of quarterback resurrections. We've talked about Daniel Jones and Mac Jones. I'm happy to see him, even though he's an Alabama guy. I'm happy to see him not to be thrown into the heap and to have a chance to rebuild himself.
Candy.
We also talk about time of possession. San Francisco 40 minutes to the Rams 26 minutes. And the Rams had two fumbles lost that the San Francisco took advantage of. Kudos to them for playing a tough. These are two tough teams, and without Brock Purdy, San Francisco's still finding a way to get it done.
Mel.
If I'm an owner, I have to look in my front office, and I have to try to figure out what is going on here. You look at Mac Jones, who I always liked coming out of Alabama. I thought he was a good quarterback. I just think they gave up on him. He's in a bad situation. Whatever happened to him in New England, I don't know what happened. But if I'm an owner, I got to look at the front office and say, what are we doing here? You look at Mac Jones, you look at Daniel Jones. You just can't just keep drafting quarterbacks over and over again, spending that kind of draft capital and getting somebody and hope that they pan out. When are we going to teach these players? They used to be able to sit down for a year. Even Pat Mahomes, he sat down for the better part of the year before he got out there and started playing. And then the next year, it was his job. He had Alex Smith to learn how to be a professional, to learn how to prepare, to play in the NFL. And then he got his opportunity to start. They're throwing these guys out there immediately, throwing them out there to the wolves, and then they're just throwing them away, just getting rid of them. Mac Jones went down, and he went down to Jacksonville and backed up Trevor Lawrence for a little bit down there and got the opportunity to play. And now he gets up there with Kyle Shanahan, and he's looking like the quarterback that everybody thought that he was. I think San Francisco wanted to draft him back when he was when he came out in the draft, but they didn't want to spend the draft capital necessary in order to get him. They didn't want to draft him as high as a lot of people thought that he would go. I think it was a third pick or something like that. They didn't want to draft him there. But it just I look at it as if I'm an owner, I have to look at my front office and say, what are we doing? What are we doing here? At some point in time, you got to stop the madness. I think Mac Jones, I always thought he was a good player. Daniel Jones, I never really was high on him. I know Tom thinks a little bit differently about him, but he's showing that, given the right situation and the proper coaching, that he can produce at a high level. So I'm happy for Mac Jones and the way he's going out there and producing.
Marvin.
Mac Jones has been coached by Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, and now he's with the young guru up in San Fran. Smart of them to pick up a backup quarterback the caliber of Mac Jones, former first-round pick, former Pro Bowl player, guy who's had reps. He's seen the animal, smart guy, athlete, not athletic necessarily. And, it's just smart, especially when you consider all the injuries that have happened in the NFL this year. They had to have a backup quarterback. I think they got the right one, obviously. And it's good for Kyle to have what I would still call two young guns. I think these guys are like in year 4, maybe 4 or 5. These are young guys still to a degree. Again, this is a day where we throw a young quarterback out there. Aaron Rodgers sat for 4 years. It's a different mentality now, and we don't have the same patience. I wonder how much of that is coaching though. How much of that is the coaches not having their stuff together to get these quarterbacks right and to train them and bring them up the right way in the NFL, that they have to bounce around at 3 or 4 teams before they find success. But this kid is balling. Brock Purdy is trying to get on that field as soon as he can. You better believe it. He may become trade bait, hopefully not to the Jets. But, Mac Jones is looking nice out there.
Sure is.
Yeah, by the way, who was that New England coach where who failed to develop Mac Jones.
Touche, Tom. Touche.
All right, well, I'll tell you one big storyline over the weekend. No more undefeated teams left in the NFL as the upstart New England Patriots defeated Buffalo 23-20 in Buffalo. The Denver Broncos took care of Steve Reichel's Philadelphia Eagles and by a score of 21-17. Don Shula and the rest of them must be happy. We're going to make the last few topics rapid fire. Tommy, no more undefeated teams. And we don't have to worry about the story the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's not surprising. The NFL is so balanced. Free agents and the way the draft is set up. You got to hit it right for 2 or 3 years like the Bears did in '85. And nobody's really – well, New England did it, and then they lost in the Super Bowl. They did it for the regular season. But, it's harder to do than it ever was before. I don't think anyone will ever match the 1972 Miami Dolphins.
Candy?
I think part of it is, yes, there's more parity in the league, but I think there's also been some keynote injuries in different teams, and it's next man up mentality. And so the question is how close to the talent level is there for that next man up? Because some of these teams have hit, let's face it, who would have thought the Baltimore Ravens would have laid the egg that they laid this last weekend, or Indy against Vegas? Like, there is just, but it goes to show that any given team can beat any given team on Sunday, or should I say Monday? Because look at the Jags beating the Chiefs last night too.
Excellent points, Katie. Mel. And we'll talk more about the Jaguars next week here on Inside the Pigskin. Just,
Yeah, with free agency and the salary cap, it's going to be very difficult for a team to run the table because you have so much parity in the league now. You're not going to have these dynasties. You're not going to have these super teams. It's going to be very difficult. So it doesn't surprise me that here we are, week 5 already, and we don't have an undefeated team. And then you got to get lucky with injuries and things like that. And because of the salary cap, and you don't have the depth necessarily because you're spending so much money. You're so top heavy, spending money on quarterbacks and wide receivers, guys that only touch the ball 3 or 4 times a game, spending a lot of money on guys that can rush the passer, and they get 20 sacks or 15 sacks a year or something like that. And we're spending a whole lot of money on guys like that. And you don't have enough money to pay backups, to have good quality backups, unless you get somebody on the cheap that's trying to prove themselves like, Mac Jones is right now, and like Daniel Jones is trying to do. So we'll probably never come close to it again. New England was the closest that we had to it. Really looked like they were going to do it, but they ran into Eli Manning. So, but I don't think in my lifetime I'll see a team go undefeated in the NFL.
Marvin?
Yeah, the Dolphins in 72 won 14 games in the regular season. That was how long the season was. We're asking teams to do that plus 3 more in a league where every week is its own season, its own drama. I don't think it's realistic that in a league where you have so much parity and, it's universal in regards to how you guys train and, how you implement offense. I mean, all the information is being shared. There's really no opportunity to have, a notch with somebody like back in the day. It's too difficult. There's a reason why in the 55-year history of the NFL, since the merger, you've only had one team do it. And I doubt you'll ever see that again. I don't think this is possible when you just look at the game that we have today.
Do you think I've had some far-fetched topics? I got one here. Everything is rapid fire going forward. Once upon a time, I would blanking do anything to play for the Cleveland Browns. Oh my gosh, where we go with this? During his pre-draft meeting with head coach Rob Chodzinski via GQ, I will blanking die for this city. Travis Kelce, people, the franchise in 2013, the Kelce brothers rooted for growing up. Travis gets drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. So he wanted to play for the Browns. Not the worst thing that happened, well, Marvin, because now he's with the Kansas City Chiefs. How crazy does that get? He wants to play for the Browns. and he's got the jewelry to prove for it, and he's with the Chiefs.
Man, listen, his hometown football team is in his heart, just like religion and family, man. That's the big three in everybody's life in America, right? That's a squad, man. I completely get it. When I was young, I wanted to be a Jet, even though they were horrible. I still wanted to be a Jet. It was in my heart, Now, when I got to the pros, I thought differently, and I played against the Jets, and I tried to do everything I can to hurt them. But I get it. He's just a kid at heart. Got a little love for his hometown team. Understandable.
Mel?
Yeah, definitely understandable. And, look how God works. Fortunately for him, that didn't happen, because if that would have happened, who knows how his career would have turned out. He's got quite a few Super Bowl rings, and, he's probably got the most famous fiance in the world. So I don't think things happen for a reason. And I'm sure he's pretty happy that he did not get drafted by the Cleveland Browns.
Candy?
Yeah, there's been some other people that have gotten drafted but don't end up going to the teams that they were drafted by. So I'm sure, let's face it, when you're growing up, you want to play for the team that you grow up with, because that's the team that you idolize. Those are the players that you recognize, the players that you can you want to be like. But kudos to him, because let's face it, his career would not be the same had he gone to the Cleveland Browns.
Tommy?
Yeah, I think when you say that, I think of Junior Seau. He wanted to be drafted by the Chargers, and if he didn't go to the Chargers, they wouldn't have been in the one Super Bowl they've been in the 1994 season, when Junior was at the peak of his powers. So, he grew up a Browns fan. There's nothing wrong with that. I find it refreshing that he wanted to play for the Browns, and we never know how life's going to get in the way, but I find it refreshing he wanted to play for his hometown team.
Well, Bernie Kosar wanted to play for him too, and it worked out pretty well for him. But
there's another example.
Yeah, there you go. So let's continue a few more Browns things. We only have a few more. We have about 15 minutes to go in the program, and we'll say when the Browns when they benched Joe Flacco after he lost to Detroit, Dylan Gabriel became the new starter. But you wonder, could Shedeur Sanders see the field in the event of an injury? Well, we have a new development that took place today, as Joe Flacco was traded to Cincinnati with a 6th-round pick, and the Browns will get a 5th-round pick. So that really changes the thing about Shedeur Sanders, Joe Flacco, and now Dylan Gabriel. Where do you want to go with this one, Marvin?
Listen, they're going with 2 young guns. Blows my mind. But at the end of the day, they want to draft capital. This obviously means, rebuild, or, they're in that rebuild mode to some degree, where you're allowing your Super Bowl MVP quarterback to get out of there just to get some draft capital and let your young guy get in there. We'll see, man. We got a lot of football left. He played 1 game. These defensive coordinators are going to get a book on this kid quickly. They're gonna realize what he does well, what he doesn't do well. And, don't be shocked if we see Shedeur Sanders in there at some point. I was shocked to see the trade, but it's the NFL, like I said. And, you got teams out here. The Bengals are trying to stay relevant. They got a lot of money invested into these wide receivers. They have a lot of money invested into their team. There's a lot of drama in the Bengals offseason about, are they going to bring back their defensive end, Trey Henderson, and, are guys going to get paid? So this is a situation where they need to win games. Their quarterback they had, Browning, wasn't getting it done. They're calling on an older Joe Flacco, not so mobile, but a guy who won't blink. So we'll see what it does for them. Hopefully it helps, because I'm certain that Jamar Chase and them boys are having words with the head coach and that GM about that quarterback situation.
I'm sure that's why they made the move. Mel?
Well, Jamar was still getting his rocks. I mean, I think that's what they care about more, is getting their catches than winning. I'm not sure. I think they had to do it. They were going to do that anyway. So you look at what the Giants did with Russell Wilson. They had to figure out what they had, and what they got in the draft. I think that the Cleveland, they need to figure out what it is that they have. They, at the quarterback position, do we have young talent here? And I know Shedeur will play as well. And regardless of whether Dylan gets hurt or not, or how well Dylan is playing, or how poorly he's playing, I think Shedeur is going to get an opportunity as well, because I think they have to figure out what they have here, and so they can determine what they need to do going forward. Do we need to go back into the draft looking for a quarterback, or do we have our quarterback already in the building? So I think they have to figure that out. They got what everybody believes is a first-round talent in the 5th round. They're giving Dylan an opportunity because they drafted him first. Obviously, they drafted him in the 3rd round or the 4th round, whenever it is that they drafted him. And then Shedeur is going to get his opportunity as well. And they're going to see if they have the quarterback in the building. I don't think that Deshaun is going to be the quarterback. I think they've pretty much, come to the understanding that he's not going to be the future. So, do you have somebody right now that you have on a rookie contract, on a cheap contract, that you can build around while you're paying the defensive end all the money that you're paying him right now, and you're sound defensively? Do we have somebody at the quarterback that can man the ship, and then we can do some things, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, maybe do we have our guy? Do we have our Tom Brady? Do we have our Brock Purdy? So I think this is something that they planned on doing from the beginning. They just wanted Joe to get him out there in the water a little bit, and now that they're out there a little bit, let these guys go out there and see if they can swim.
Candy.
At the beginning or in the preseason, we laughed at the Cleveland Browns because they had so many quarterbacks, and we were like, what are they going to do with all these quarterbacks? And now they've slowly dwindled it down to just a couple. What I will say is, welcome to Lambeau, Flacco, because you're going to go against Micah Parsons this weekend if you're getting thrown in to quarterback, because you guys are the Bengals traveled to Lambeau on Sunday. So welcome to Lambeau, Joe.
Tommy?
Flacco wasn't playing that well, partly because they don't have an offensive line, and he's a 40-year-old man. He can't be playing behind a weak offensive line. So actually, they should have made this move earlier, I think. And Flacco ought to be glad to go to a team like Cincinnati and have a better chip. I assume they have a better offensive line and better wide receivers. We know Stefanski. I don't know if I've heard this. Stefanski liked Dylan Gabriel. That's why they took him first. I'm not convinced he's better than Shedeur Sanders. And if you're going to have to play behind a weak offensive line, I would put my money on Shedeur Sanders before Dylan Gabriel, because he spent his whole college career running for his life, and he produced.
Good point. So I'll tell you one thing. You traded Joe Flacco and you traded Kenny Pickett. What'd you get? Draft capital. All right, one other thing I want to talk about with the Browns, and that's it. Dylan Gabriel's parents missed his NFL debut in London because his dad didn't have a passport. Gabriel was the Browns' 41st starting quarterback since 1999. No passport. Thank you. You can't see your son play, Tommy. My.
What was that again?
Yeah, Dylan Gabriel's dad didn't have a passport. They couldn't see him play his opener in London.
I thought you meant a ticket. That's a funny story.
Yeah, well, we're trying to keep it real here. All this here.
You should have planned ahead.
Yeah, there you go. Great. We'll keep it short because I know I have one that we're going to end with Marvin, who's going to smile from here all the way to Iceland, one of my favorite countries now. Candy, what are your thoughts about the no passport? We know how badly we needed those.
Well, as much as we've talked about the NFL and they're expanding into the international market and playing how many games, you need to expect that. And so if you wanted to see your kid play, if your kid is playing in the NFL, you should have a passport, because eventually all the teams are going to be playing an international game someplace.
Mel?
My question is, why didn't he have a passport, or why couldn't he get a passport? I mean, I remember you could get a passport in a couple of days. You can get an expedited passport. And so if he wanted to travel, I believe you could get an expedited passport. I've done it before, gotten past, and this was a long time ago. I don't know if things have changed with 9/11 and all that kind of stuff. But it used to be able to get a passport, expedited, pay a little more money. Money obviously wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't be an issue here. Pay a little extra money and you can get a passport in like 2 days or even 24 hours. Somebody will shoot over to Chicago, walk the paperwork through and bring it back to you. In Atlanta, there's a passport office right here in Atlanta. You can go down there and get the passport probably the same day, if I'm not mistaken, pay a little extra money. I don't know. But that would be my question. I didn't hear the story, but that would be my question. Why didn't you just go get a passport?
Yeah, mind-boggling. Bottom line is, Daddy couldn't see someplace because he didn't have a passport. Tom Shanahan had the best expression. He's laughing. All right, Marvin.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I've been caught in a situation where I did an expedited passport and didn't get here in time, and I didn't get my flight. But it's terrible, man. I hate the guy couldn't see his son playing his first pro game. Believe me, his dad's probably been an advocate. His family supported him his whole career. You pray and you work to get to the highest point, of your profession or of whatever it is that you love. And for football guys, it's the NFL. So you get a chance to start your first NFL game after starting 60 games in college and having your parents at every single one, and your dad can't come to the game because of a technical issue with the passport or whatever it was. That's unfortunate for the family. That's the bigger issue. I feel for the dad. I know he's brokenhearted. And I bet you Dylan would say it's probably the first game his dad has missed in I don't know how long. I bet you that's the case. So that was probably a big deal to them. And, it is what it is. It's life.
We got 7 minutes left in the show, but thankfully only one more topic. And I saved the USC one here for Marvin. Okay.
Yeah.
In preparation for the USC game, Michigan football will use the LA Chargers $270 million training facility, the Bowl, which Sharon Moore called Michigan West. Thanks to Jim Harbaugh. What are your thoughts there? The Bowl, Jim Harbaugh, Sharon Moore, Michigan West. At least I don't have to worry about jet lag. Marvin?
Yeah. So, we USC Trojans play the number 15 Michigan Wolverines in the Coliseum Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. on NBC. We're 2.5-point favorites right now. And I'll tell you what, this is Lincoln Riley's biggest game of his career. It is a must-win for him, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to be fired after we lose, and I'm not saying he should. But this is the biggest game for USC in the Lincoln Riley era. Sharon Moore and the Michigan Wolverines escaped a victory last year against the USC Trojans up in Ann Arbor. They're playing at USC for the first time since the 1950s. All their other encounters have come in the Rose Bowl, where I believe USC is 7-1. But yeah, they're going to come out there confident, as they should. They have a stud quarterback, I will admit. The Wolverines do. They have a very physical defense. What USC has is arguably the best offense in college football, and a defense that leads the nation in sacks. So this is a situation where they're a good. And they also have a good run game. Michigan has a stout run game. Their running back has ran for 100 yards in each game of the season this year. He's in the Heisman talk already. And this should be a great game for the Trojans. I believe USC comes out here at 35-34. I thought about that. I thought about that score. Trust me, there's reason for that, Rom. So I feel good about it. I have total respect for Michigan. They're going to be physical. This will be a very big test for USC. This is going to be Lincoln Riley's defining moment, and we need to see our Trojans play well because the Michigan Wolverines are coming to play ball.
Let me tell you one thing. Harbaugh told all of Sharon Moore's coaches, the least you can let him do is use your facility, for God's sake, so you don't have to worry about Chip. Right? But I know you're with the Trojans. I get it. I understand it. I understand the banner behind you. But at least Sharon Moore can go out there and hang out with Jim Harbaugh and hang around his practice facility and get a few pointers.
Yeah, listen, take them out. I hope you go to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles and In-N-Out Burger. Let them drive up Melrose, see the palm trees, get their mind off of football. Get their mind off of football. Go to Sunset. Yeah.
2.5 minutes left to go. Mel, some thoughts about more the Wolverines playing in that practice facility by Harbaugh. Real quickly, you have about 2.5 minutes.
Two times I root for Michigan is when they play Ohio State and now when they play USC. So, I'm hoping they go out there and take care of business. with those Trojans, and that's I don't have much to say about the Trojans. Looking forward to a hard fought game and Michigan coming out victorious.
Why do I know this was coming? All right, Candy.
I'm looking forward to a good game. I mean, these two big programs trying to get a good win for their national championship pedigree that they both want. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you'll be recording it anyways while we take care of FAU and UAB. All right, Tom, you have the last word. By the way, Tom Shanahan and Marvin Powell will join us on Sports Exchange tomorrow night around 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Go ahead, Tom, with the last word before we go to Candy wrapping us up.
Oh, I forget. Is this one of the games where the Michigan head coach is not suspended for cheating?
Correct.
Is he eligible to coach?
He's back.
He'll be
He'll
there.
have to be on the sideline.
Yeah, he'll be there.
Harbaugh missed 3 games last year. This guy's missed 2 games this year, and he's going to miss another one next year. Go USC.
Yeah, Will Person, looking forward to having you tomorrow night. Our debut. Right, Candy? And with that said, Will Person is in through X. All right, Candy, go ahead. Give us you already gave us your thoughts on this? So why don't you give a preview for that show, and let's wrap this puppy up real quick.
Previewing your show tomorrow. Your show is with CTE and the
Will Person and Jennifer Hartstool will be on with me tomorrow night with Will Person. Go ahead, Candy.
Talks about CTE, the Olympic bobsledders. So really looking forward to that series starting tomorrow night. As for the rest of it, South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott Madmouth Morganroth. It talks about his 40-plus years in the business. Old school media versus new school media. Get your copy today. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you want to advertise, call Scott, 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And if you see that red subscribe button, click it like a share us and turn on your notifications. Thanks, Scott.
All right. As we wrap it up, Marvin, let everybody know they get a hold of you.
I'm Marvin on the mic. I'm now on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Marvin Powell III on Facebook. Yeah.
Now Candy knows him as a former Green Bay Packer. Great stuff. Okay, Mel.
Yeah, you can catch me on all the social media. At Mel Farr Jr. Catch me on all the social media at Mel Farr Jr., whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, at Mel Farr Jr. And then you can follow what we have going on for the youth at melfarsuperstarfoundation.org.
All right, Tommy, you got about 45 seconds, and you'll do more tomorrow night on Sports Exchange.
TomShanahan.report is my website. Podcasts, information about my books you can buy, and the documentary we have in development. Get in on the ground floor as an investor.
All right, well, that does it here for us on Inside the Pigskin. So on behalf of Stephen Reichel, Tom Shanahan, Candy Ebling, Marvin Powell III, Mel Farr Jr., my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us. Tommy, Candy, and Marvin will join me tomorrow night on the Sports Exchange. Meanwhile, everybody have a great night. Thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the football this weekend. We've given you a lot of information. If you can't get it all in the first shot, please go ahead and play the episode again. We make sure there's a lot of information because our goal is to educate, entertain, and inform. And we've done that tonight. Thank you very much for your participation in the chat room. Well, personally, we will see you tomorrow night. Good night, everybody.